Thank you very much. Mr. Marshall.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chairwoman, and Mr. Secretary, again, welcome. And I just want to stop by saying what a great country we live in. I'm so proud that our carbon emissions today, a nice steady downward trend since 2003, and I think that's mainly due to conservation and innovation. And if I could take our time to lock in on agriculture and rural America for a second. As I look at the big picture, transportation creates about 29% of this country's carbon emissions, industry about a fourth, and agriculture about 9%. So we feed this entire country and only produce about 9% of carbon emissions, and we're still able to transport another fourth of our products out of the country with that in mind. In my adult lifetime, we're doubling the agriculture production. We're using less water, but still, over the last decade, agriculture's had a smaller carbon footprint. So I'm really proud of that. What is the DOE doing to help promote conservation, promote innovation? So even though we're improving, agriculture wants to keep improving. How can we keep working together? What can we do to put wind beneath your sail?
Yeah. Mr. Marshall, I think there's a couple of areas that I would mention just that I've seen, again, in my travels through the national labs, and keep in mind one of my prior jobs in the state of Texas would be the agriculture commissioner for 8 years. So, and I grew up on a farm, and my mom still lives on that farm. So there's this real personal connection back to rural lifestyle, rural values, and certainly the great contribution that agriculture and those rural communities make to America. With that said, in the additive manufacturing side is one of the areas where I think we have some great potential to continue to be developing more efficient equipment, both from a weight and a strength standpoint, that these national labs, the work that's being done at Oak Ridge National Lab, their additive manufacturing facility there is pretty fascinating. I made mention of Secretary Carson having some manufactured housing, additive manufacturing housing shown on the mall here within the last 30 days. He also had a vehicle. It was a Cobra, a Shelby Cobra that was built by the national labs, and so the agricultural community can be served, I think, well in the additive manufacturing side with some of the work that we're doing. Also at the Sandia National Lab, and this is Sandia National Lab over in California at Lawrence Livermore. The work that they're doing on efficiency on diesel engine combustions and the emission side of it. Again, you don't think about the Department of Energy and agriculture. That's not the first thing that comes to mind. Idaho National Lab, I'll finish with this, the work that they're doing on biofuels and some of the real progress that they're making there. So there's 3 examples of a place where the Department of Energy is I think, making some positive impact on the agricultural/rural communities.
Great. Let's talk about rural America for a second and the challenges, the improvements of battery storage. Like Texas, Kansas has a large wind energy production. About 35% of our electricity is generated from wind. Was recently in Johnson City, Kansas, our largest solar farm. We were breaking ground on it recently. And what I learned is that despite originally tending to buy those solar panels from China, that already, as President Trump predicted, they've removed that supply chain of solar panels to other countries, and therefore able to pull this project off, so it's exciting. But one of the challenges is when we have battery storage for 1 or 2 people in a mile stretch, a dead-end road's a little bit different than battery storage for big cities. Can you speak a little bit what the DOE is doing for battery storage and how that technology is being improving? What do you see the future looks like?
Yeah. I mentioned a little earlier what was happening in Florida with what Governor DeSantis was laying out, along with Florida Power on their storage. A lot of that technology came from work that's been done at a national lab, PNNL, and some of the work that they're doing on battery storage. So you know, there's new grid storage launch pad that's occurring at DOE. That's going to accelerate material development, testing, having some independent evaluation of battery materials, battery systems. I think I asked Paul to talk a little bit about some of the elements in these batteries that are not rare earth minerals that are going to be very effective for us, and that we don't have we don't have the concern about where those materials are going to be coming from if they're developed in the United States. So validating this material capability, accelerating new technologies, and obviously collaborating, the collaboration both with the DOE and the labs out there, and the private sector. And the states have a role to play in this as well. Of
course.
One of the things I always remind people is that when they think about Texas, they always think about, you know, yeah, y'all are a big oil and gas producing state, which we are, but we also became the #1 wind energy producing state while I was the governor of the state, because we wanted to have a diverse portfolio. And so the wind energy side of what occurred in Texas, I remind my friends in Europe on a regular basis, Ms. Fletcher, when I go over there, that Texas produces more of its energy percentage-wise than what the European Union does. That's a good thing.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you very much, Ms. Weston.